Hey everyone, I'm Gracie and welcome back to the Gracie Military Child podcast. The world should know how unique military children are. We may look like normal children on the outside, but we go through some pretty extraordinary circumstances that shape us to the leaders we are today. I am super excited to continue on with our No Greater Sacrifice series, sharing the stories of military children whose loved ones were critically wounded or fallen in action. I hope you find inspiration from these scholars that just because a traumatic situation may happen, you are still able to achieve your hopes and dreams. Hi, Anna. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
So thank you so much for being on. Tell me a little bit about who served in the military and just get a little backstory on that.
Sure. So my name is Anna Karcher. I am the eldest daughter of retired Colonel Timothy Karcher. He served in the military for a lot of years, not exactly sure how many, but for a majority of my life growing up, pretty much all of it. And so he served in the war 3 times. Where's Audrey? She's not here to fact check me. 3 different times, and was actually injured in his final tour. And so that's kind of how you and I got connected, and just kind of my experience as being a military child, I guess.
Yeah. So did you move around quite frequently, or were you kind of stationary?
You know, I had kind of an interesting experience being a military child. So we moved a lot when we were younger. We did Kentucky, Germany, Georgia, Kansas, Texas. And then once we got to Texas, we just kind of lucked out with having a few different tours, kind of back to back. Obviously, Fort Hood's a huge military base. Yeah. And so we kind of got to stay there a little bit, which was kind of nice. I didn't really have that traditional military child experience where you're moving every year. And then once my dad was injured, we needed to be close to BAMC in San Antonio, and so we really got to stay there. So I had kind of a unique experience being in Texas, growing up with the same people and the same kind of schools from, let's see, 3rd grade all the way through graduating high school. So very unique comparatively to most military kids, I would say.
Yeah, and most kids are like, we don't even stay in the same high school for all 4 years. Right. They're moving around constantly.
Right. Well, and I will say too, my mom was like very adamant. By the time we got to high school, which would have been the time your dad was in the Fisher House with my father, my mom was like, no, we're not moving. Like, he came up here for a little while and worked up here, and she was like, no. She's like, I was in my senior year of high school. Audrey was in high school. Abby was kind of in these are my sisters, kind of in her, more formative years. And my mom was like, no, we're staying put. Like, we've set down roots. It's like going to be okay. Like, this is the way we need to do it. So very unique experience comparatively, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And I'm sure military kids of any experience will say, I wouldn't have it in any other way to begin with.
Totally. It's very unique. No matter what, you get a lot of unique experiences, and not everything good, not everything bad. Yes. It's just the way of life, Yeah.
So growing up, did you kind of move schools a lot with those country or state moves that you did?
Yeah, so we moved schools a lot when we were, like I said, really young. And then we kind of got to stay put and kind of set down roots more than I think I ever really expected, which was kind of nice. So yeah, not a ton when we were little, but not a ton once we got older, which was kind of nice. It's the stuff I remember, really.
Yeah, you can keep the same friends.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more important.
Exactly.
Anything else. Yep. Did you go to school on base or public?
I shouldn't say always. By the time we moved to Texas, we were living off base, and we went to just a public school in the area. And yeah, we never moved on base at Fort Hood. I'm not actually sure exactly why, but we just didn't. Yeah. And then once we kind of put down our roots outside, it was like, oh, now we don't want to move. We got our pool. We were like, we need to stay out here. Yeah. So, but it was nice. Yeah. Always close to base, of course.
Yes.
So.
Did you find it challenging making friends in a public school versus what you would imagine a military-based school being?
You know, I still think where I was in school, because we did go to school and base, I guess, when we were like in Kansas. Right. But where we were in Texas, still like being right around Fort Hood, like I said, so many, huge base. Yes. So most of my friends' parents were military anyways, or had some military affiliation. So we were all kind of used to the, you've got to go in, you've got to put your best foot forward and make friends. Yeah. Like there was no other option. You can't, I mean, you can be a wallflower for a little bit, but if you want to have friends, you got to just, you know, go for it. So no, I mean, I probably am the most talkative of my siblings. So no, I did not find that personally very hard, but it was hard seeing, you know, as people would come and go. Not, like I said, I had a more unique experience being kind of in the same place for a long time. But, you know, of course, not all my friends were that way. I've had friends that have just gone all over the place since, you know, we met in 3rd grade. So
yeah. And somewhere where, like Fort Hood, you have such a strong military connection, not only on base, but off base as well. So.
Well, and by the time we were there, it's like everyone's parents were deploying. So, you know, I had friends' parents in and out, and, you know, sometimes moms were gone, sometimes dads were gone, sometimes my dad was gone. So it's just kind of like a revolving door of, even if everyone wasn't leaving, what they were going through and what everyone was experiencing. So, yeah.
Everyone has a different, you know, journey that they take on, and you know, everyone's life is different. And even though if your parents are deployed to the same area and you're in the, you know, same school or whatever, everything is still different.
Totally.
So tell me a little bit about when your dad got injured. Like, how old were you?
Okay. So I just did my fact check before this to make sure I got details correct. So my dad was in I guess an accident is not the right exact phrasing. His truck was hit by some sort of bomb in Iraq in 2009. I'm sorry. So I was entering my freshman year of high school. So it was the summer before that. You know, it was really touch and go, quite frankly. It was pretty serious injury, and not only being a serious injury, but, you know, obviously being all the way across the world from one another. It was very hard to get exactly how serious it was, exactly what was going on. One day you'd have someone calling you saying, oh, he's going to be just fine, you know, trying to be positive, and the next day would be like, oh, he's not going to make it. So he kind of went through that. He wasn't in the country very much longer after that, and then he transferred to Germany, then to Walter Reed. He was in Walter Reed for a few months, and my mom went there to be with him, but there was just so much uncertainty at that point, and I think we were all young enough that it just didn't seem like the right place for us at that time. She didn't know what we were walking into. He really wasn't coherent a lot of that time. And there was just things like that would just happen. It seemed like some days were good. One day they called me and they said he can't see anything anymore. Like he, you know, just in and out. There would be highs and lows, and I just don't think it was the right spot for us to be as kids. So we actually stayed with family members for like the whole summer. We had a rotation of like every week someone new came to stay with us, or we'd go stay with our grandparents, or friends and family would come. So we were there for about the whole summer. And then towards the end of the summer, he was able to transfer to BMC in San Antonio. And then my mom kind of came back, but I mean, really, it was still kind of like a rotational door. Obviously, my dad was 2 hours away. So she really kind of got him set up in BMC and was there when she needed to be. And, you know, he was in the hospital, then moved to the rehabilitation at the Fisher House and the CFI. And then really she kind of came back and got our lives back to normal, was able to go to meet the teacher and all the fun stuff. And then really like she would drop us off at school. She would get in the car. She would drive to San Antonio. She would cook for my dad, clean for him, get all his stuff settled. And then she would make it back still to like basically be there when we got off school because she wanted it to stay as normal as possible for us. So it was very unique. It's almost like when people talk about it being so upsetting, it's almost like, it was almost so normal that it was like kind of weird that it was like after he got out of like obviously the woods of like maybe not going to make it, it kind of just became normal. It was almost like we didn't see it. We went to school, we had our normal lives, we still made it to our activities. Once, he got a little bit further progressed, she would pick him up for the weekend and bring him home. Now that I'm thinking about it, she was driving round trip, 5-6 hours a week or every 3 or 4 days. So I'm sure it was horrible for her, but they made it as normal as possible for us, which was probably the easiest way to transition it, So best case scenario, I would guess.
Yeah.
So.
Did you get to see your dad recently after the accident happened, or how long was that?
I'm trying to think of the exact timeline. So we did not see him at all when he was at Walter Reed. And I feel like he was probably there for a few weeks to a month. And then when he transferred to BAMC, it was still pretty touch and go, but I think that we're kind of coming to the end of the summer, and my mom wanted to be home. He wanted to get to a spot where, he was going to have more full-time care, of course, because it was he wasn't going to stay and do rehab at Walter Reed. He was always going to transfer down here. So I think it was important to make that move. But I think, so he flew down and they stopped in with us in Fort Hood. And it was just it was tough. It was not good. It was probably we talked about it this morning, actually, when we were filming, and I said, I think to me that was the most traumatic day of the whole thing for me. I think it was really important for him to see us and us to see him, but it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do with seeing him, because I think before it was everyone was telling you what was happening, but it was all okay.
Yeah.
It was going to be okay, no matter what. It was going to be okay. And then it was they kind of prepared us. They were he's really skinny and he's kind of sick.
Yeah.
And then just seeing him, he had been, I think Audrey quoted me this morning, 225 pounds and 6'4" when he left, the last time I'd seen him. And now he's, doesn't have legs. Yeah. He's a bilateral amputee. He's probably 100 pounds. I've got pretty skinny arms. He was much skinnier than me. So it was just, it was hard to see. It was really tough. And I think it was really important for him. It was really important for us. But ultimately, I think it was probably the toughest time to see him. So, and I think probably looking back, I think they were a little worried he was still going to die. And they were just he needs to see someone. He needs to see his kids. He needs to have a reason.
Yeah.
And, so it was a weird time, but I guess I wouldn't have it a different way. But it was very traumatic, I would say. So.
Yeah. What was kind of going through your head leading up to those days of knowing you were going to see your dad again?
A lot of relief that we're still going to get to see him. I guess it's so interesting because my sisters kind of describe it differently. My youngest sister was so little, Abby, at that point. And so, I don't really think, she probably holds a lot of trauma from it. But then Audrey describes it she always thought he was going to die. She thought, everyone's looking at us we're going to be the kids that, we're going to be orphans, essentially. And I don't remember feeling that way. I just remember just being it has to be okay, whatever that is. I'm not saying that's going to be good. Ultimately, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So I think leading up to it, I kind of was oh, cool, this is good. I'm glad we're going to be able to see him. And I actually think seeing him for me made it so much more real, because I think before it was just you're hearing reports every day and you're getting information, but it just seems almost it's not your life. I don't know how else to describe it. It's because you're not seeing it with your own eyes. It's almost it's okay. It's going to be fine. My mom's going to go there. She'll come back at the end of the summer and we'll be good.
Yeah.
She'll bring him home. It'll be no big deal. It's almost kind of an out of body sort of experience. I don't know how to explain it otherwise. So.
My dad always used to joke with us that they'd sprinkle pixie dust and his leg would grow back, so...
That's funny. That's funny.
He was going to go back to normal. But
exactly.
It doesn't happen.
It's never going to go back to normal, but I was going to say, it easily became, you and I were talking about this earlier today, the new normal pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. It's kind of insane when you think about it. Because how old were you when your dad got hurt?
I was 9.
So do you remember him without legs?
With legs?
Or with legs, sorry. Hello. Or with a leg. Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So, like, and especially looking back at pictures from that, like, I remember most of it. Yeah. And then the way Mom told us that he got hurt is we had just seen Dolphin Tale. That was our last movie we saw as a family. And so Winter ended up losing her tail due to a crab trap. And so she was on the phone with Dad one day, and she was like, how am I going to tell the girls? Like, they knew something happened because all the chaos that was happening that day. They knew something was going on, and we were, like, removed from our house. Like, we moved out, essentially. She's like, they knew something happened, but they don't know what. And I knew it was something with his leg. I just didn't know what, because I had to make phone calls and say, hey, something happened to Dad. Like, you need to get over here, something with his leg. Yeah. And so I knew that extent. And then it was Thanksgiving Day. And prior to that, she was on the phone with Dad and said, Dad told her, if a dolphin can do it, then I can do it. So, and he... 10 out of 10, he will not remember saying that probably because he was so high, but yeah, he's like cracking up over there. But 10 out of 10, he probably does not remember saying that. And Mom was like, oh, that's how I'm going to tell the girls. So she was like, do you remember how Winter lost her tail? Well, Dad lost his leg. And sure, we cried for a little bit, but then we were like, oh my gosh, she's going to get a flipper. This is so cool.
Yeah, no, it's so weird. Because I guess, I mean, I was old enough. Obviously, I have memories. Yeah. But when if I have dreams or anything and my dad's in them, no legs. Never. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like that is just really like ingrained in how I just see him now. Yeah. So
it's like the pictures are the only thing you have of that, and sure, like the little bit of a memory, but of normalcy. Sure. I mean, this is the new normal.
This is the new normal. I was going to say this is the new normal. So this is exactly. This is more of the memories that I have. So
yeah. So tell me a little bit about your favorite experiences as a military child.
As a military child, well. You and I are both involved in this great organization, NGS. And I would say this has obviously been my military experience after my dad lost his legs. But getting involved in like such a nice organization that really... should I do a little recap on what NGS is actually? Yeah. Is that better? Okay. I realize that might be kind of random. So... Getting involved with this organization, they provide scholarships and debt-free college to wounded and killed in action children of military soldiers. And so getting involved with NGS and having that connection after having such a traumatic event, I think it's just like been one of the most enriching points in my life. And I would say probably all of my family would agree with that. It was just, obviously such a tough situation, and I think could have been very daunting and very, could have been world-ending for a lot of people, I think. And I think instead of it being really a negative, quite frankly, the doors NGS has like opened for us, and some of the experiences we've got to have through NGS being military children really like has been things I would just never have gotten to do otherwise. Like getting involved with NGS, I've been, to New York to Ground Zero. I signed the spire of the Freedom Tower. I've gotten to do multiple presentations, been to a multitude of galas and stuff, and been able to present awards to people and share my story. And I think just give people insight to seeing that, this is just a way of life for some of us, and it's all going to be okay. Like, we're all going to be okay. So I think those are some of my most rewarding experiences. Of course, the moving and stuff when we were young was fun, and some of the connections you just have with people in the military, it's just so funny when you can really get talking to anyone. If they have a friend, a cousin, a brother, a mother who is in the military, you can sit and talk about it. So it's just such a nice connection to have, and it's just very rewarding.
Yeah. And I think that's so special, like with that traumatic experience that, we both went through, that, my dad got out of the military. He retired when I was 12 years old, so I did not really have that experience. And he had a 7-year break in service, so whatever 12 minus 7 is, that's how many years I had as a military child. Can't do the math right now, but that's how many years I had as a military child that I had experience as. And then, I didn't get those connections as much as most other kids do. So being a part of NGS, it's like I have these connections still, and I'm able to make these connections still because of an organization like NGS and their willingness to connect other military kids and organizations and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and I guess I can't speak for you guys, but I find it like so easy because, I think it seems like our families have similar humor with the whole injury situation. There's no need to dwell on it. We're just going to have to move on. So at least make a few jokes about it. So it's just so fun being around people because it's like sometimes if you're around other people, they just think it's like so awkward. Like they're like, oh my God, I can't believe they just said that. Like, oh gosh. They just feel like they have to tiptoe around you. And it's like, it's not a big deal. It's going to be okay. If we're making jokes about it, you can make a joke about it. So it's just kind of fun to be connected with people who have been through similar life experiences as you. So
yeah, and I mean, what are you gonna do if you don't joke about it? If you don't have fun with it, like you're just gonna be like an emotional wreck then. Like you can't.
Life is way too short to just sit and dwell. So we just got to move on. So.
For sure. And even my sister at like 8 years old, she clearly had that figured out. But by like the day she saw him, and the first thing she said to him was, watch where you're walking next time. So like clearly, even kids at such a young age, you have that figured out to, oh, cool, you don't have a leg now, or you don't have both your legs. Like, okay, cool, let's just keep living our life and keep moving forward like we normally would have.
There's no other way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. So your favorite experiences, let's flip it. What were some of the hardest experiences?
Well, obviously having the injury is probably obviously the first thing that comes to mind. But I would actually really say now looking back on it, it's really probably more like the younger years and just not having him there. When I really think about it, it's like it was so ingrained in me as like, this is just the way it is. So I didn't really think about it as another option. And growing up with so many military students or children, it was like, everyone's parents were doing it. And then I actually think this is so insane that it took me this long to realize I had missed out on something. But it probably took till I got to college to realize oh, some of my friends' parents were there all the time. And my mom was always there. And my dad was always there when he was home, but he was deployed. And so we just, it's just you miss out on some of these big life events that it's like, I know he would 100% be happy to be there for, be overjoyed to be there for. And, if we have to turn it around and try to make it not so negative, he actually we were just talking about around Christmas break, actually probably is when it came up because we were all home. And I live in Dallas, about 2 hours away from my parents, and he texted me afterwards and he was just like, if I had not been injured, if I was still in the military, regular service, I would not have all these memories with you guys. I wouldn't be home all the time. He'd be deployed for holidays. He'd, be working 12-hour days. He was just I just literally would not have these memories with you guys, being home and, timing-wise, it was towards the end of my high school time. So he got to go to prom and graduation, all those things that a lot of military parents just unfortunately during wartime have to miss. And so, he's definitely made up for it, but it's, those, when you look back, those are probably the hardest things because there's just memories that you could just never, ever get back. So, and that's just the way it is. It's worth it, but just the reality. So.
Yeah, and it's hard to, even as a child, like those younger years, it's hard to say, oh, my dad's not going to be home for Christmas. Like, my dad's going to miss my birthday. Or even, like, for the kids whose mom was in, like, it's hard to say, like, my mom's not going to be here for my birthday or Christmas or these holidays. Right. And even if you track all the way forward towards graduation, it's hard to say, you know, this is such a big milestone in your life and your parents missing it.
Yeah. It's just, like I said, kind of the harsh reality of it, unfortunately. But yes. I don't think my mom let us really dwell in it. So that's why I said I really think it honestly took me till about college to be like, maybe that bothered me. Like, maybe it did, but can't go back and change it now. So I turned out okay.
Those memories of being like, oh, it's okay. Like, he's not here. It's okay. Instead of, you know, dwelling on it and being upset and sad about it that your dad wasn't there.
Yes. My mom did not allow us to do that. I remember even like when he would deploy, she like wouldn't even let us stay home from school that day. And I was like, this is a little harsh. And she'd be like, no, we don't have time for this. You just have to move on. So, but yes, so it's just unique. So just unique.
What was that day like when your dad deployed? Or one of those days?
Yeah. So it was just always like, just sad. I don't know. There's just always so much hype up to it. And I don't remember, though, ever feeling like, oh, he might not come back or, oh, he might come back injured or anything like that. Like, it was more just like the loss of time that was kind of traumatic. But like I said, she really was pretty tough on it, which I appreciate now and probably have picked up some of that demeanor. But it was pretty much like, okay, well, you can cry till we get home. And then, like, let's get a donut and get back to life. Like, it was just kind of like, we don't have time to be upset. This is our life. Like, you just, there's no sitting home and crying is not going to change anything about it. So it's kind of like, you just have to move on. So, so sad days, but I think being surrounded by so many other military children, it was like everyone was going through it. Everyone had it at some point or, you know, so it was easy to kind of have people to connect with. Yeah. So
I think that's important too, is having the connection. Because when dad deployed and I was, 9, I didn't have that connection as much. And so I literally sat on the couch and cried for a week. Like, my mom was like, get it together.
But it wasn't allowed.
I got yelled at so much to just quit crying. And even my sister was like, come on, like, get it together. Like, this is, like, what are you doing with yourself?
Yeah.
But so do you have a favorite, I don't know, place you've lived or somewhere you call home? I mean, probably Texas
Texas
now.
For us, I was going to say. So most of my memories really are in Texas. And I just really liked living there and growing up there, and I still live there, and I always thought I would move, and now as I'm getting older, I'm like, why would I move? I just want to be close to my family. So we just kind of have roots there, and I think that's so unique as a military family to have been someplace for so long and have so many people there that, like, really some of these people have been there long before my dad lost his legs, quite frankly. So, Texas is it for me, I think, so. Yeah.
I think Texas is so special, and it's such a special place and holds so many memories, and it's such a military community in Texas no matter where you go.
Absolutely.
So we talked about NGS, so tell me a little bit about where you are and what you're doing.
Sure. So I went to TCU, Texas Christian University in Fort Worth, Texas, and I studied interior design. With a minor in art history, though I have not used that in my career. I graduated in 2017, and I had interned at a company in Dallas, and I have since gone on full-time there, and I'm now a project manager for an interior design company in Dallas. So keeps me busy. Sure. Keeps me really busy. So,
what made you choose interior design?
I've always kind of had a passion for art and creative, and I just wanted to find a way to, like, make a career out of it. I didn't want to I mean, I love doing art and all those kind of things, but I just wanted to make sure I was grounding myself to a career and focused on something. So actually we were watching our film from when we became involved with NGS 10, 12 years ago. And I said on there, I either want to go into business or interior design. And I guess here I am 12 years later. I did it. So yeah, I've just always had a passion for it. My program and my company is more like architecturally based. So I really appreciate that. And like, it's just challenging and just really stimulating. I just really enjoy it. And it's nice to be able to do something you're passionate about every day. So.
Yeah. And it's important to find something you're passionate about it. So you're actually willing to go to work and wanting to go to work.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Life could be very long if you don't like what you're doing. So definitely.
Did you have any, I guess, thought to join the military?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
0%. I was kind of getting tickled. When I was in high school, the ROTC director would always ask me if I wanted to join, and I thought, no. Absolutely not. Like, I've had enough military. I'm good.
Yeah.
So, no, not even considering.
My parents kept telling me, like, go to West Point. You're so smart. Like, you could get into West Point. And, you know, since Dad was military and we know connections and everything, they're like, you can get in so easily. And I was like, I considered it for a while. And then it was like, no, I've seen what the military can do to you. That's not my field.
Yeah, I don't think any of my siblings even considered it, now that I'm saying that. I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Did you have any other family in the military besides your dad?
Yes. I had an uncle in the military. I'm trying to think, that probably is it, though.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, I think my dad did it as a means to pay for college, and then it kind of became a passion. I don't know that he like necessarily knew he was going to go into the military full time. Like, I think it was just, I want to be an officer, or I need to pay for school, so how can I do it? And then all of a sudden, it's like, you know, I heard your dad say this morning. I know I can fully confidently say that he would say, I do it all over again.
Oh, yeah.
So there would be no questions asked. He's like, I would do it, even if I knew it was going to turn out the same way, I'd probably still do it. So, you know, it's such a passion. So yeah.
My dad always said, when people asked him if he would ever do it again, he'd say, yeah, I got two arms, a leg, and a life to lose.
I've got so much more. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So,
where do you think that from your military experience and now, you know, doing your interior design thing, where do you see yourself in the next couple of years?
Oh, gosh.
Or where do you want to be?
Yeah.
Where do you want?
So I really still see myself doing interior design. And probably more of like in a commercial setting, which is what I'm doing now. I still see myself doing that for a while, just because it's so fun and such a passion. And I don't really think I want to do it as much when I have kids. Like, I think once I have kids, I kind of want a different schedule probably. Yeah. So I see myself doing that for a few more years. And then I really still see myself staying in Texas. Obviously, God willing, getting married and having kids. And I just see myself staying close by my family. So, I mean, we really are tight, and I really just like having those connections and just staying close by. So, yeah.
For our family, the injury made our family so much closer together. And then me and my sister did online school, so we were constantly at home with our family. So that was a little different in our situation. But do you think the injury made your family closer as well?
I do. I also think it made my family happier. Not that we were ever unhappy, and I don't remember it ever being like unhappy. I would never have said that, but I just think there's a lot of things that kind of come up that I'm like, I guess it starts with my dad and saying that, you know, after he had his injury, I really think like he was just so grateful to have lived and to be okay and have these things such as NGS come in and alleviate some of the stress in life. And, you know, he was able to stay in the military for a while. And then once he retired, there was plenty of job options. So I think like he became such a happier person, and just kind of that whole, like, there's so many other things that could have happened, so many worse things that could have happened. that I think it's very easy for me to look at him and be like, if he's not yelling and upset, I have literally no right to be yelling or upset. Like, I'm totally fine. My life's fully taken care of. Like, it just gave you a new perspective on life. And I think that just, again, not that we were like by any means unhappy before, but I think it gave everyone kind of a reality check of like, don't sweat the small stuff. Like, this is not worth the drama, you know? So I do think it made us closer. And I think everyone wanted to be together and just was really grateful for the life we had and still have together. So.
And it's such a special connection that you then have with your family. And like when we moved to Florida, it was like this whole new life after the military, and then, starting basically living when we were all under the same house, and, we didn't have as many doctor's appointments and, running all around base. Like, we didn't have as much as that as we did.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get it. Totally get it.
So one last question. What piece of advice would you give to another military child?
Oh, you didn't prep me for this one. Let me think about it. What piece of advice? I think just really piggybacking kind of off the last little point we had is just really being like appreciative of your family, not only your service member, but your other parent, your siblings. Like, this is just all so, it could be taken away so quickly. And I think that it's just important when you have that time together to really value it, to invest in the people around you, and just to really be grateful for like everything you're given. I know it's not easy every day. I know it's not easy a lot of days, but I think that our service member is just doing such a great thing that it's just, with the time you get together, just to really value it and just be appreciative for what life has to offer you.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Was that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've got like flights to catch and everything, so thank you so much. And I'm so grateful to have known you guys and, lived with your dad, and now finally I've met you and your sisters. And
no, it's been so great meeting you and so great getting connected with your podcast. I'm very excited. So,
yes.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening to this week's episode of Grace of a Military Child podcast. If you enjoyed listening, don't forget to follow, like, share, subscribe, review, and comment. You can also follow us at Grace of Military Child Podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram for more podcast-related content. If you or someone you know is a military child who would like to be featured on the podcast, please send us a message to one of our social media platforms or send us an email to grace.of.a.military.child@gmail.com. For more information on No Greater Sacrifice, you can go to nogreatersacrifice.org or send an email to info@nogreatersacrifice.org. Thank you, and join us back next week for another inspiring story.